All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Council meeting September 21st, 2021 is called to order. And I think
Recording in progress.
we'll have Kathy McDowell lead us tonight. So everyone else turn off your microphones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right, Carrie, would you please do a roll call?
I will. Mayor Dorsey,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Councilmember Feast,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
Councilmember Onesco. He's muted.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Eric, you're on mute.
I think he might be frozen, Mayor.
Okay. All right,
Pledging his allegiance still.
I'm sure he'll be with us in a minute. Okay, let's move on. Does council have any late changes to the agenda tonight? All right. Seeing none. At this time, I would like to remind members of the public that they can make comments during the public comment period, as well as any time listed on the business agenda or the action agenda. When making a comment, you will need to raise your hand electronically on the Zoom app. State your full name and whether you reside in the city limits, Mason County, or reside elsewhere. To join, option number one, join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link that is displayed on the city's web page. The link is listed on the agendas and minutes page under the tab that says more. Option number two, email City Manager Jeff Knighton. And option number three, call Jeff's office phone. Both the email address and the phone number are displayed on the screen of Mason Web TV's streaming video. All right. Any council members have a board report to share? Okay, seeing none. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I move to accept the consent agenda as published.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Carrie, do we have anyone interested in making a public comment?
You're on mute, Carrie.
I do not see anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So now we're going to recess from a regular meeting to open a public hearing. Budget Coordinator Don Tweesme is here to share information about a 2021 budget supplemental.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. There's quite a few pieces in this budget supplemental, so I'll kind of summarize it, and it should be in your packets that you can follow along. The city passed the 2021 budget back on November 17th of 2020, and the city council through the ordinance sets the expenditure authority for the city for the whole budget, for the number of FTEs and the budget individually by each fund that we have. So this supplemental ordinance will increase expenditure authority in three funds: the general fund, capital improvement fund, and the equipment maintenance and rental fund, in the amounts of a total of 2.3 million, 1.9 in general fund, 348,000 in capital resources, and 30 in the equipment maintenance fund. I'll touch a little bit more detail on those items. So in the ordinance itself, then we also are going to be creating new capital funds in our in the utility fund. So water, sewer, and storm drainage will each have a capital fund that'll will reserve the resources for capital projects so that it's easier to track, and then it's more clear for all of us that that money, once it's approved by budget in the capital project, it is moved into that fund, and that's where it stays to pay for the expenses of that project. Then on a little bit of a breakdown on the amounts in general fund for a total of 1.9 million. 1.4 million is connected with the ARPA money, the American Rescue monies that we received, and it's going to be the transfer them out of general fund to our capital resources fund, where those funds will stay until they're authorized to be spent, and then we'll transfer them out to the project that is being funded by those. And then also back in May of 2021, the parks expanded and bought the Shannon property for $84,000. So we need budget authority to show that we have spent that money, and that was funded by the Shelton Metropolitan Park District. And then we also have a supplemental amount of $6,000 for the Human Resources Department to cover some expenses that were actually for 2020, but were paid in 2021. And since we are on a cash basis, it reflects as a 2021 expense. And then for in the police department, we're authorizing 4 new police vehicles in the amount of $260,000. So that would get paid out of the capital improvement fund. So we'll have to transfer money from the general fund to fund those. And then in the courts, we have they needed a new AV system. So for $88,500, we'll make a general fund transfer to have funds to upgrade their AV system. Also in the general fund, we have a $30,000 increase for the FCS group that's going to be doing the consulting work as we prepare for this, our equipment rental and revolving fund. And then another 40,000, and later we found this, it won't be a whole 40,000, but there's an increase in the dispatch rates that'll be within the police department. And we found out later it'll be more like 20 versus 40, but this was written up in advance of that. And then in the capital improvement fund, the same $260,000 shows up because that's where the capital will be used to purchase the vehicles for the police department, and also the $88,000 for the AV equipment. And then half of the contract with the FCS group is going to be coming out of the equipment maintenance and repair fund for $30,000. So I think I covered all the different pieces. Are there any questions?
All right.
I have a statement. I just want to thank Jeff and the leadership team. I think you guys have done a wonderful job with our budget the last couple of years. We came from a pretty dark place, and to see these numbers now is very impressive. Thank you, Jeff and leadership team.
Yeah. I echo that. Jeff, the team has done a fine job. So, all right, Carrie, has anyone signed up for public testimony?
Darren, I got a quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Don, could you, in the line that we're talking about the police vehicles, the transfer of funds from the general fund is going to the capital improvement fund?
Yes.
I wasn't sure, was that something we were going to, and this may just be because it's not ready yet, but I was under the assumption we were going to transfer those funds as part of ER and R as well. Or is that just not in time, since it's a little sooner than anticipated?
Don, I got this one. So the ER&R fund hasn't been created yet, but what this does with the new purchase is when we develop those, the length of time that we expect a police car to last or a public works truck to last, whatever it happens to be, it'll lengthen out that time for the replacement period. So because the ER&R hasn't been created yet, and we don't know the rates, those purchases go into capital as kind of an interim.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Then I had a quick question for staff, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Megan?
Since we have new information about the budget increase needed for dispatch services, since it's only going to be about $20,000, should the staff recommend that we adjust our motion to include an adjustment to that budget increase number to 20,000 instead of 40?
We certainly could.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary as long as we don't exceed the 40,000. Anything that we don't spend will not be spent as long as we don't go over the authority of that number that council adopts.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Carrie, has anyone signed up for testimony tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, could you please give me the first reading of ordinance number 1974-0821?
Yes. Ordinance number 1974-0821. An ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, amending the annual budget for the year ending December 31st, 2021.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a motion, please?
I move that we forward ordinance number 1974-0821 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration.
Second.
All right. Any more questions from the council? If not, we have a motion and a second to forward ordinance number 1974-0821 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. This public hearing is closed, and we are going to open another public hearing regarding a debt management policy. Interim Finance Director Terry Schnitzer is here to share information about a debt management policy.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and council members. Good evening. I'm bringing to you tonight the debt management policy. The amount of debt the city issues is an important factor in measuring financial well-being and proper use and management of debt that can yield significant fiscal advantages. So this policy will ensure that the city issues debt in accordance with all the applicable laws and regulations. And it establishes criteria to protect the city's financial integrity while providing a mechanism to fund the city's capital needs. It also adds processes and analysis before debt is issued, as well as good stewardship, transparency, and clarity. Excuse me. The debt cannot be issued for a longer maturity than the estimated useful life of the asset that is being financed. The policy allows the finance director to approve short-term interfund loans not to exceed 3 months in a calendar year. And it also allows the city manager to approve loans not to exceed 12 months in a calendar year. And then council will be notified of these loans. The policy issues long-term debt greater than 3 years for capital projects that cannot be financed from anticipated cash flows at the time of construction. And the city will not issue long-term debt for current operational needs. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
So would you give me an example where we would use this?
For issuing any sort of debt, like the debt that we just issued for the LTGO or those bonds. So it's any debt within the city. So
But-
either short-term or long-term debt.
And that would come to council first?
For the longer term, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So the shorter term loans that the finance director can approve or I can approve cannot cross budget years. So those would always come to council and we would of course keep you informed of those. Those would be for short term. We don't ever anticipate using those. We just want to have that club in our bag or that tool in our toolbox if you get what I mean.
All right,
From you.
I would see this more as something emergent need were to pop up and we didn't necessarily have the cash at hand. So if it was a expensive repair or something along those lines. Yeah, obviously not for large scale capital improvement projects.
No, you're absolutely right. This is something where we wouldn't want to take out a loan from a private entity. We can loan across funds, although that is, as I said, a last resort. And those loans have to be paid back with the standard interest rate, with the prime interest rate, if I remember correctly. But there is cost associated with it, so we would prefer to avoid that at all costs if we can.
all right. Has anyone signed up for testimony? Carrie?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would you please give us a first reading of ordinance number 1975-0821?
Yes, I will. Ordinance number 1975-0821. An ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adopting a debt policy governing the issuance and administration of all debt issued by the city.
Okay, thank you. How about
Welcome.
the motion?
I move that we forward ordinance 1975-0 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration.
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments? I think we've covered that. We have a motion and a second to forward ordinance number 1975-0821 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. This public hearing is closed and we are opening another public hearing regarding an investment policy. Interim Finance Director Terry Snitzer is here with the details.
Thank you again. So tonight I'm bringing you the investment policy. This policy is the purpose of this policy is to establish the investment objectives, delegate authorities, standards of prudence, eligible investments and transactions, internal controls, reporting requirements, and custodial procedures necessary for the prudent management and investment of city funds. This policy allows the council to designate the city's finance director as the investment officer for the city. It ensures that standards of care and ethics requires that investments are made with sound judgment and care that the public can trust. Provides a platform to ensure investing public resources in various securities as allowed by state statute. It establishes safekeeping and internal controls. And it allows funds to be invested in various securities, which the majority of our investments are with the local government investment pool, LGIP. And then we also work with TVI Investment, who is our investment advisor for any bond purchases. And those are through the US Treasury obligations and or the GSE agency securities that are listed in the policies. Those are the major ones that we use. So if you have any questions.
Okay. Anyone signed up for public testimony?
Okay. We see no one, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Can you give us the first reading of ordinance number 1976-0821?
I can. Ordinance number 1976-0821, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, adopting an investment policy governing the investment and administration of city resources.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion, please?
I move that we forward ordinance number 1976-0821 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration.
All right. Eric, did you say second? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, now do we have any questions for Terry? Seeing no hands. We have a motion and a second to forward ordinance number 1976-0821 to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This public hearing is now closed and we resume our regular meeting. Okay, City Manager Jeff Knight will be sharing information about a surplus of city assets policy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. Tonight, we have a updated surplus policy for your consideration. The current policy that the city is operating under was adopted in 2011. So it's about 10 years old. And as you know, we undertook a full and comprehensive review of all of the policies of the city. This one is several of the pieces of the policy are restricted. So things like real estate or any assets owned by utility funds or enterprise funds would not be affected by this policy. They're governed by separate RCWs. But this one would affect things like the surplus item that you saw about a month ago for the 3 police cars that are total value of $2,100. Current policy is anything over $1,000 must go to the city council for approval, and best practices in the state, as we've undertaken a review around the state, is setting that limit at 10,000. So anything worth 10,000 or more would come to council. Anything worth less than that I could surplus without bringing it to council meetings and potential work sessions and things like that. So that's what this new policy is intended to address. Wanted to let you know in the options and alternatives, there's a back and forth. About half the cities have this limit set at 5,000 and about half set at 10,000. We wrote it at 10,000, but if it's something that council is more comfortable with at 5, we're certainly happy to do that as well. But this is intended to more efficiently operate our organization, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
All right. Do we have any public comment here, Carrie?
One moment, Mr. Mayor. We do not.
Okay. Do we have a motion, please?
I move that we forward the revised surplus of city assets policy to the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration.
Thank you. A second, anyone?
I have a question.
Well, we'll get there in a minute.
Okay, all right.
Second.
All right, thank you, Eric. Now, any questions or comments for Jeff? Go
Does this, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Jeff, does this apply to everything across the board that the city owns?
Mostly just general fund properties. So things like the police cars we were talking about a month ago. What else? If mostly it applies to the police department because they are wholly a general fund department. If we were to surplus something from one of the enterprise funds, then that would still come to council because it's governed under a separate set of rules.
Okay,
If I recall, I mean, most of the stuff we've been surplusing from the police department has been pretty close to junk.
If,
And nothing close to 10,000 that I've heard. More like 2,000. So I'm wondering if anyone on the council is more comfortable with the 5,000, or are we okay with the 10?
I'm okay with the 10.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm good with I'm good with 10,000 just because we don't surplus things very often. We don't have a huge fleet or anything like that. If we had, lots of rolling stock or, other
Yeah.
assets like that, we're a fairly small organization. I think this just helps kind of speed process up a little bit. And,
I saw Deidre nodding her head.
Me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
same
I
here.
agree as well.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to forward the revised surplus of city assets policy to the October 5th city council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we have Community Development Director Mark Ziegler here to share information with us about the Hope Community Garden in Callahan Park.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Pleased to present to you tonight an agreement with Hands-On Personal Empowerment, otherwise known as HOPE, to install a community garden in Callahan Park. We have been discussing this project with representatives of HOPE and the Mesa Conservation District for a few months now. And finally aligned on the 10,000 square foot area that is just east of the parking lot in Callahan Park. It's a little used area that is quite visible to the neighbors as well as off of the adjacent street in the parking lot, and would serve well as a more active recreational area. In this agreement outlines the responsibilities of the city and HOPE. HOPE would install the raised garden beds, edible plants, maintain and manage the gardens that would be utilized by low-income families, the general community, and also produce fruit and vegetables for Community Lifeline and Saints Pantry. The city will provide water and power service to the site. We have a gate that we'll put in the existing fence to provide access, and then also pay for utilities over the lifetime of this agreement and the existence of the garden. Staff really believes this is another recreational amenity to add to Callahan Park with the ball field and shelter and basketball court and all of those amenities to bring another recreational opportunity and community engagement to Callahan Park.
Okay. Is there any public comment, Carrie?
One moment, Mr. Mayor. I do not see any hands raised, sir.
All right, how about a motion?
Move to forward the agreement with Hope Garden to the action agenda for the October 5th city council meeting for further consideration.
second,
And we have a second. Okay. Council members have any questions or comments for Mark?
Mark, are we going to be installing any kind of security? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I see a couple hands. Go ahead, Eric.
Are we going to be installing any kind of security cameras over there? I seem to remember that the last garden up here by the hospital was vandalized on a few occasions.
We have no plans for security cameras at this point. In speaking with the Hope representatives, that hasn't been a concern. Their concern was more about deer. We certainly are susceptible to vandalism in our parks at times. I think it's the nature of the beast. But we hope that having more proactive activity in that facility, not only the ball field, like I said, the picture shelter playground, but also folks utilizing the garden will help deter some of that.
Thank you.
Kathy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick one. You said it's the east side, so it's on the parking lot side of the park?
Correct, east of the parking lot, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Inside the existing fence line.
Megan or Joe, I don't know who's first.
Joe is
go ahead, Councilmember Feast.
I just want to kind of where Eric was going. I know that our prior Hope Garden wasn't always maintained and, you know, provided support all the time, and just want to make sure that as we all commit to, you know, or recommit to this partnership, that those raised beds are maintained, and that our Hope partners need help, that we get out there early and often to support the effort rather than waiting until it's too late.
All right, thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I was kind of just curious on a little bit more on process. I've actually had a neighbor approach me about kind of doing a similar project in another city park. It wasn't specific, but I'm assuming it would be something that we could route through the Parks Board and or, you know, Mark, but just in general, I mean, is there capacity? I mean, understand land space and area, but is there kind of capacity to do this at some other parks within the city limits, or are we kind of focusing on Callanan at the moment?
Essentially, we looked at other parks within the community and our existing facilities. I think that we really aligned on a park that is developed, because we have that activity that's ongoing right now, and we're adding another amenity there. So we kind of have more, you know, just more eyes on the site. For example, Catalyst Park, it's kind of it's really the only activity that happens up there. So we do get some vandalism. We do have some folks hanging out there that probably aren't, you know, well intended at all times. So I think the intent here is to, you know, add it as an amenity, and hopefully we'll have more eyes on it. It'll be less susceptible to some of those activities. But personally, as staff, we are open to expanding this if there's a need in the community and we find the right partners. But we'll have to find the right, you know, facility in the right time.
Kathy?
Mark, I know I've talked to you about this before, but what about the Birch Street little park? There are the little garden area that the neighbors wanted to put in over there where the creek went through the house.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still a possibility for a garden?
Well, that's a storm facility at this point. It was purchased through the storm account. So
Right.
I think that there's potential for redevelopment of that site once the house is down, but we certainly need to defer to the Public Works Department for the intent that property was purchased, which was storm attenuation first and foremost.
Okay.
Okay, hey, Mark, I got a comment. So what is the city's, what responsibilities in this partnership as far as what do we have to do?
We're providing the property and
Okay.
we're providing the utilities.
And utilities?
Yeah, so we'll just extend our irrigation system essentially to a hose spigot. And then we're working on potentially running power to the site, running one outlet. If that's not feasible, there's some obstacles there. If that's not feasible, they can utilize power when they need it off of the existing restroom.
Okay, and if it does get overrun with, you know, not taken care of, are we going to go in and clean it up?
We have the ability to terminate the agreement
Okay,
if that's the case. We certainly don't want it to be a blight or a detraction from
Right.
the facility. So we have the ability to terminate the agreement and have them remove the garden if that's appropriate.
okay, thank you, Mark. Oh, Kathy's got a hand up.
One more. The area that you're putting it, are there trees around that, or is that pretty well open to get lots of sun?
It's pretty well open to the south. That's why it faces the south. So we have some trees that we're going to limb up.
Okay,
And a couple little opportunistic pines that aren't real pretty that we're going to remove. But for the most part, it's open and will receive good sunlight from the south.
okay, good.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to forward the agreement with Hope Garden to the action agenda of the October 5th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Now on to the action agenda. Public Works Director Jay Harris is here to share information about the C Street landfill. Hi, Jay.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. C Street landfill. We are with the Department of Ecology. We're in a public review comment period process. There'll be a new order coming out from the Department of Ecology with a recommendation to put an impermeable cap on the landfill. And this resolution tonight is to authorize the city manager to sign that new agreed order. And there has been no changes from the last presentation I gave at your prior meeting.
All right, thank you. We have public comment here, Carrie.
One moment, Mr. Mayor. I see no requests for public comment.
Okay, could you please give us a reading of resolution number 1207-0821?
Yes, I will. Resolution number 1207-0821, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, accepting and authorizing the city manager to sign agreed order number DE 19541 with the Washington State Department of Ecology.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1207-0821, a resolution accepting agree order number DE 19541 and authorizing the city manager to sign the document on behalf of the city.
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments from the council?
So I have a question. So now this goes to ecology for approval and public hearings with them.
Yeah, they have a public process, public comment period process. They're going to open up as 30 days. There'll be plans at the front counter here. They'll be advertising that on their website, and people can come in and look at the proposed agreed order and the documents we found here during our open business hours. And once the comment period ends, the Department of Ecology will take all those comments and then actually draft the final order. And when that final order comes out, this resolution allows the city manager to sign it. If it's any different than the draft order that's included in the packet, we'll be talking to you about that.
Thank you. A long time coming. I'd like to get this landfill closed.
Yeah,
Here,
and then moving
here.
forward, we have grant money to begin the design of the actual closure plans and specifications. And then after that, and then in the meantime, we'll be searching for grant funding to do the actual construction work.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Anyone else? We good? All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1207-0821, a resolution accepting agree order number DE 19541 and authorizing the city manager to sign the document on behalf of the city. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Our last item is a memorandum of understanding with Timberland Regional Library District. Community Development Director Mark Ziegler has the details.
Thank you again, Mayor. I'm pleased to bring to the council tonight an agreement with Timberland Regional Library District to remodel both public restrooms in the William G. Reed Library. Timberland Regional Library District received a substantial donation to complete this work. And since it's the city's building and our existing contract with Timberland Regional Library District does not account for a project like this, we brought this supplemental memorandum of understanding forward to really establish rights and responsibilities of both parties. The work would entail painting of the walls, installing new flooring, countertops, and restroom stalls. The memorandum of understanding basically just outlines that Washington State bid laws will be followed by Timberland Regional Library District. They'll provide documentation to the city, allow for inspections, any as-built plans, color palettes, and anything like that in place with the council's approval. And with the execution of the agreement, they should get started within the next couple weeks.
All right, thank you. Do we have a public comment, Carrie?
One moment, Mr. Mayor. I do not see a request to comment.
All right. Do we have a motion, please?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city and Timberland Regional Library District regarding William G. Reed Library public restroom renovations.
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments from the council? I have one, Mark. Are these bathrooms are upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Mhm.
And have you seen them? What I'm wondering is, I want to make sure there's no rot on the floor that gets covered, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we have seen them. It's been a bit of a concern. We'll know when we pull all of the old linoleum back.
Okay.
But we'll make sure our facility staff is on site, so we're not covering up a problem. And make sure that we're not just putting a Band-Aid on it, that this is going to be a long-term fix. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you. Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city and Timberland Regional Library District regarding William G. Reed Library public restroom renovation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. That brings us to our administration reports. Jeff, will you give us your city manager report, please? You're muted, Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. A couple things to mention tonight. The first is that even though today's weather was absolutely beautiful, I think it got up into the high 70s. We are going to see a lot more of what we saw over the weekend. And I would just ask people to keep an eye on their storm drains. We're going to be sending out social media reminders and things like that. But we want to make sure that those storm drains are clear so that they can function and do their job appropriately, and keep floodwaters away from houses and businesses and other buildings. Also, did want to say thank you very much to the Mason County Senior Center. They are volunteering tomorrow to pick up litter downtown, starting at Loop Field, and that's an activity that I've worked with their center director on to get everything taken care of, and they're using some of our materials, but all the manpower is theirs, and we very much appreciate their volunteering to help clean up downtown Shelton. Couple other things. The fog seal for 13th that's been under paving. That project has been going on for quite a while. The fog seal was laid down today, so I know there was a little bit of excess oil out there. That should be gone relatively soon, and we'll have a nice preserved asset that we can count on for years to come. And lastly, not so good news. Park Street, the supplier, unfortunately, of the glass grid that we talked a little bit about last time, promised to have that here by the 21st. It's stuck on a train somewhere between Chicago and here, but they do anticipate now that it will be here on the 28th, and we'll be able to get the Park Street project wrapped up. But we've tried to be very proactive, communicating with all of our partners and with the public around that. And we try to get the news out as quick as we can, and then the timeline changes. So I think we'll continue doing that just because it's important to update people and be as transparent as possible. But until that train gets here, which hopefully is the 28th, Ken Gill, our city engineer, told him, hey, it's on a train. Great. There's tracks right next to the site. Bring it right down. That probably wouldn't work as well as we thought, but it's planned to be here on the 28th. We can get that project wrapped up. And Looking ahead, I want Deputy Mayor to notice I've got looking ahead highlighted and written in red on my agenda here, so I won't forget it this time. But on the looking ahead, we have your study session on the 28th, the week from tonight. That is going to be concerned with the 2022 budget and with the first of 3 parts of our strategy to address homelessness in our community. We will talk about that. I've reached out to community partners and stakeholders to get their comments on that. So we'll have the study session on the 28th. It is planned for a public hearing on October 19th, so we can make sure we have enough time to incorporate all the comment or any comment that we receive into our drafting of the ordinance. And then final action is planned for November 2nd. On your October 5th agenda, you will see a presentation on the 2022 budget, just to make sure we are directing our resources to meet the council's strategic priorities. And you will hear all the same things you heard tonight on your action agenda. On the business agenda, we have a few things, the audio video equipment purchase that we talked about a little bit tonight with the supplemental, the contract to design the ER&R program, and the prosecution services contract for the city and with our municipal court. And with that, happy to answer any questions. And that's all I have.
I just have a comment or a statement that I wanted to make. I know we've talked about it before, but the new city app, to pay your utility bills, to report street issues, storm, sewer, water, parks, code enforcement is a great tool to use. I reported a safety issue and had a response in 3 days that it was completed. I think it's great. I think people should use it, and it's much easier to pay your bill online, and you can also set up auto pay, which we weren't able to do with the last system. I know we've talked about it before, but I thought I'd mention it.
Our new edition of the Shelton Stream is coming out in utility bills soon. That was the topic of my article about the digital transformation that we're undergoing here at the city, highlighting all of those programs and the support that council has provided us so that we can make this city organization as efficient as we possibly can. And we appreciate the support from you. And I think once we get all these programs up and running, it does take a while, but it is well worth it. And you will see the benefit once all those programs are fully implemented.
Also I wanted to mention on when you report some of the stuff, you can report this stuff anonymously, especially if it's a code enforcement issue. So people know that.
All right. Thank you. Is that it, Eric?
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, anybody else? I just wanted to mention that 2 things. One, I reported a tree that was down on the highway going up Mountain View. And it wasn't the tree that was so bad. It was still kind of on the bank, but the limbs were sticking out over the white line. And people were, you could hit them with your mirror. Anyway, I reported it, and the next day it was gone. So, I reported it on a Sunday. So anyway, and the other thing is Jeff and I met with Marty Crow and Scotty Mills this morning. And they're interested in building 6 to 8 houses. And I just want to tell you guys that I'm so glad that Jeff came to that, because he answered questions that I couldn't even touch. And his experience in these matters is just so valuable to the city of Shelton. It isn't funny. So with that.
Mr. Mayor, that's Habitat for Humanity looking at that project.
Yes. I didn't mention that? Sorry. So. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, our next council meeting will be on Tuesday, October 5th at 6 o'clock. We also have a study session scheduled for Tuesday, September 28th at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 6:49. Thanks, everybody.